I was kind of browsing on people's blogs and YouTubes and whatever the other day, and I saw a lot of stuff about the stories of Adam and Eve, and most of it's pretty funny stuff. It's like comedy hour. Everyone just gets all giddy. Adam and Eve had no clothes and whatever. And I think that this story, more than any, is a core foundational story, which is a lot of it can be a lot of fun, But then it's got such a dark side to it that I think a lot of times we're just kind of laughing it off because we realize that the story contains some things about the core of who we are, and fallen man is such a heavy topic that it's almost helpful to just kind of laugh about it. So I'll let you go to those sites. I'm not going to go into that here. But I wanted to talk about some of the posts which are trying to make this story look ridiculous. And there are quite a few. And, to all of you out there who are saying that, I mean, in some cases, I just want to say, have you even listened to what the story is trying to say? Well, one of those, though, asked a really good question, and it's one that I'd want to pick up on. And that they were saying that God is really, really cruel and unfair to plant the tree that is so tempting right in the middle of the garden. Right in the middle. And so, I kind of like that question. I like that question because that indicates that God had something in mind when he put the tree right in the middle of the garden. And, maybe it is cruel because God didn't have to do that. He could have put it off to the side. He could have kept it out of sight. He could have done a lot of things. He puts it right in the middle of the garden, and it's kind of like, no matter where you go in the garden, you're constantly reminded of all the stuff you can't have. You go to the east, you go to the west, no matter where you are, you look and you see this tree in the middle. You're thinking, I wonder what that tree is like. I wonder what that fruit tastes like. And not only that, but I don't know if you remember this, but Eve walks up to the tree, and she takes a look at that fruit, and boy, is it beautiful. Is it good to look at? Now, what kind of a cruel God would not only put the tree in the middle of the garden, but he would also make it look so good that you just can't stand not to eat it? And I know this is just an old story, but who are we kidding here? I mean, we've all got stuff like that. We've got stuff in our lives that you just can't have, And a lot of us don't want to admit that. In fact, a lot of us will go to great lengths to get what we can't have. And so I just want to ask about the implications of what God is doing here. And, all I can give you are really some of the stuff that I came up with, but I would imagine that some of you have some good opinions about this. What's the good side to this? What might God be doing that would actually be helpful or perhaps respectful of the man by putting this tree and then telling the man that he can't have it? And one of the things I like to do in these stories is to compare. These stories are meant to be unlocked. And one of the ways that you might unlock the story is to compare two things in the story. And in this case, what I want to compare is what is it that the man and the woman can have, and what is it that the man and the woman cannot have. And I've got a few. I wonder what you think of these. The man can have which trees in the garden? How many trees? Is it a lot or a few? I hear you saying a lot. What is it that the man cannot have? If you said all the trees, we can't all have everything. Is this not a proven principle in life? None of us can have it all. We can't go everywhere. We can't do everything. We are rather small. A lot of us have to be reminded of this. You know, I talked before about a post where I talked about work and how God gave man an identity which was in part built around his work. So wouldn't you say that identity is one of the things that a man can have? And if identity is one of the things that a man can have, what is something that he cannot have, given what the serpent said about the fruit? I hear you saying something about being like God, perhaps the omniscience of being like God. And what I wonder is God actually telling us that we cannot reach the status of God? Because, you know, I've seen a lot of magazines lately, and I've seen a lot of stories which are saying that mankind can do just about anything. So is this not the quest which we are on to try as hard as we can to become godlike? What would you say God is saying about this? And another thing that I thought, you know, this fruit was very desirable. God placed it there on purpose, I think, because God knew that it is not a good thing for us to have everything we want. Is that true? What do you think about that? However, I get a lot of encouragement when I look at this story and I see how God looked down on Adam and he saw something that Adam needed and he took care of it. Do you remember what that thing was? God took care of everything that God knew that the man or the woman needed. Now, how much is that worth? We cannot have everything we want. However, do we have everything we need? Another comparison that I saw in this story, you know, the man had something beautiful, and it's the same thing that God possessed, and that is community. Because God looked down and he said it's not good for the man to be alone. So God made sure that the man had community. And you know, if you're browsing through YouTube videos like this, I almost wonder if you lack that. Because God wants you to have that kind of community. And God himself is a community. And God and man is a community of communities. So what is it that a man or a woman cannot have? Total autonomy. Because it's the man standing aloof, completely on his own, with the woman completely on her own, even though they happen to be with each other, that got them into this mess. And then there's one more, I think, and that's that a world without rules. Is God saying that the world is good with no rules? Because if that's the case, then what is it that God gives man in a world without rules? And I would suggest the answer to that is trust. God gives us trust. And that is the gift. And that is the compensation for having to live in a world where we can't have everything we want. Alright, see you tomorrow.